All right, main event, guys. Gilbert Burns, Kamaru Usman. Fingers crossed it stays for the till they make the walk to the octagon, because this fight, it's been canceled twice now, right? Or rescheduled technically.
Yeah.
You had Masvidal stepped in, and then I think there was one other time that it was supposed to happen. But anyway, it's finally here. We're a week away. Hopefully they make it there. And listen, when this fight was first announced, well, both times it was announced, I was very high on Gilbert Burns. Very, very high. I really thought he has the chance to dethrone Kamaru Usman. But kind of as I've let it simmer a little bit, I'm kind of starting to move back towards Usman. I think for one, Gilbert Burns, like he was hot, right? Like he was on fire, running through everyone. But now it's kind of hit a snag. Like when fights start getting canceled, I feel like it kind of derails the momentum a little bit. Like you're going out there, you're fighting a lot, you're knocking guys out, you're dominating fights. And then you have two fights, you get yourself all amped up 2 times, and then boom, gone, derailed. And I think over that time, really, I think that momentum kind of starts to get taken away. And Usman, man, I just rewatched the highlights to Covington and Usman, and I will always say that fight was a lot closer than people give it credit for. But I just, Usman's striking is very good for a guy that wrestles a lot. And we didn't see it much in the Masvidal fight because it's George Masvidal. That's what he does, is strikes. Like if it was against anyone else, his striking is pretty good. And I think Burns has looked good since moving up, but I still think Usman is just so strong, dude. Like he's so strong. His wrestling is so good. The only way I could see this fight leaning in Gilbert's favor is if it's on the ground and he does throw up a crazy sub. But Usman is just so strong. I think that he will have the ability to take Burns down and kind of be able to control the fight there. I don't know. I don't even think that Burns has a striking advantage. Like I think that he's a good striker. But I don't know that he has an advantage. Like like I said, I was watching Usman fight Covington, and like his power and his hand speed is pretty damn good for a guy that doesn't really get credit for striking. So I think that it's almost like Petr Yan. Like we forget how good of a wrestler Petr Yan is because everyone talks about his boxing. I think people kind of forget that Usman can stand and fight. So I'm going to actually lean towards Usman in this one, but I don't see either guy getting finished. I think both guys have pretty good chins. His chin's never, I mean, he wore a couple of good shots from Covington, but like never really looked wobbled. Burns, since moving up, has looked pretty good, although he hasn't really had anyone test him so far, I feel like, at this division. So, but I'm going to lean towards Usman. I'm actually going to go decision on this one. I don't know like what the odds are for going to decision. I feel like both guys are super powerful, but I think that the style in which they fight will make the fight go to decision. Unless I could see Usman getting the finish if he was to like almost do what he did to Covington and just wear on him through the rounds, and by 4th and 5th round, maybe inflict enough damage that it can cause, Burns to eventually just curl up and then that be it. But I think it's going to go to the judges' scorecards.
Yep. So I think right off the bat, when this line came out, I definitely jumped on Burns. But as I was kind of looking into this more and researching it, I actually did the same exact thing as you, Zach. I actually have flip-flopped a little bit back to Kamaru Usman. Just looking at his resume, dude, he lost his second career pro fight back in 2013. He has won every single fight since then. He's on a 16-fight win streak, which obviously includes the dismantling of Tyron Woodley. He was the first one to do that. And then since then, he's defended once against Colby Covington, who is an extremely great fighter. Did that in a fashion that is completely against what his strengths are. Like you said, he went into the boxing in that one. And then he obviously dismantled George Masvidal as well. So the thing that I really like about Kamaru Usman is when you look at most of his fights, he's usually going for all the takedowns, gets the control, and that's kind of his game. And he's pretty much had a takedown in every fight except for 2. And that was one against Colby Covington. He did not have a takedown. And the other one was against Demian Maia. So that's obvious that he realizes the situation. Don't go to the ground against Demian Maia. Don't go to the ground against Colby Covington. I'm going to stand up and strike. So he has extremely good fight IQ. And I really feel like we don't talk about Kamaru Usman enough being the champ that he is. And he's just dismantled everyone. And he's not really in that conversation of like, I don't know, top 5 greats to do it, but he's really making a name for himself with that 16-fight win streak, and now he's defending the title a whole bunch. And I think the big thing with Gilbert Burns is, yeah, he's super well-rounded, but when I look at his level of competition, like I feel like he's getting overhyped a little bit. In his 6-0 run, his last 3 fights have been Gunnar Nelson, an old Demian Maia, and then Tyron Woodley after Kamaru Usman had already kind of tossed him in the trash. So I'm not really sold on Gilbert Burns that much. The more I look into it, he's very, very well-rounded. I get it, has a ton of submissions on record. He has power, but the level of competition just isn't there for me to choose against Usman, who I just think is such a smart fighter and well-rounded as well. So I originally was going Burns. I am going to switch over, and I'm going to take Usman, and I'll go decision too.
Yeah, you guys make really good points about everything. With the fight being announced, yeah, definitely Burns. I had it. The thing is, I think Burns has such good jiu-jitsu credentials that I don't know if Kamaru really wants to go to the ground with him. He might try to keep it standing. And with a powerful 170er and Gilbert Burns, he's definitely more powerful at 70 than 55. I think he's going to look really good in this fight, and throw in the fact that Kamaru changed camps, went to Trevor Whitman, albeit it is Trevor Whitman. But switching camps for the second time, and you're defending it against not Jorge Masvidal this time, you're defending it against Gilbert Burns, and a credit to Jorge Masvidal too. But I like when the fight's announced, I have a pick in mind, that's sticking with it. It worked for me with Poirier, and I think when it was announced, I had Burns all the way. So I'm going to stick with Burns and say decision as well. Both of these guys are equally willing to engage in this fight. I think it's going to be a fantastic fight, but I'm going to edge Burns with a decision.
I think that what I took away most from the Covington fight was that I think that fight brought the best out of Kamaru Usman from a striking standpoint. Like, we had not really seen him strike like that. And then to know, like, he knew that him and Colby are pretty equal wrestlers, in my opinion. I really think that. And the thing with Colby is, I think that he has the best stamina in that division. I think Colby has better stamina than Kamaru. And the only way to break down Colby was to strike. Like, the more a guy wears damage, the more tired they get, right? So I think that kind of brought out, and like Steve said, he is very intelligent. And I think that's kind of where I lead to him a little bit more. But I would not be surprised if Gilbert Burns won. I just, I feel like my gut now has just kind of shifted. Like, it's weird. Like, I really was on Burns from day one. And then it's just like over the last 2 weeks, I'm just like, man, there's just something about Kamaru Usman that I just can't bet against this week. I don't know what it is.
2 things there. I do think it's interesting because when you go and you rewatch that fight against Colby, Kamaru got hit. Like,
yeah, the first like 2 rounds,
he was getting hit, rounds. And Colby can't really strike. Like, he throws pretty sloppy punches. Like, there's not a ton of power behind them. But if Gilbert Burns catches you, you're gonna go out. So that's the only thing I have on that.
But maybe that's why he moved to Whitman, because like, Whitman's a pretty good coach when it comes to striking. Like, maybe he's like, this is my weakest point. I need to address that. Also,
Usman has a 5-inch reach advantage, which is pretty huge.
Yeah.
My phone almost died, so I had to switch to closer to the charger. But
no problem.
Oh, no worries.
Usman. I think Gilby's got a fire that burns deep within. I think we're going to see that in this fight. I think he's going to catch Usman. I think we're going to see a Gilby Burns KO. That's what I'm going with.
Nice.
Damn.
You can't tell me the deck is stacked.